Some groups are getting concerned about EU budget cuts. Development funding could be cut to below $10 billion. A real red line in their eyes. CCTV's Parrock has our story.
The EU's refugee crisis is getting progressively worse. And while many of the people making their way to Europe are fleeing the war in Syria, large numbers of people from across sub-Saharan Africa want to escape extreme poverty. Campaigners are concerned that the current negotiations over the EU's budget are going to result in aid cuts for the poorest countries.
It doesn't change too much for big countries and wealthy countries like we have many in the EU. So even if it's a tiny fraction, it actually has a huge impact on those countries and on the development world. And because of this tremendous impact, it cannot be more important than now to make sure that actually aid is not cut.
The European Council of Member States is looking to slash the pot from which development spending comes by around 5%. Other sections of the budget are looking at only a 0.5% cut. The European Commission says they're stepping up EU funding before the budget negotiations are concluded.
We decided to increase our humanitarian assistance. For instance, we just decided a $500 million increase, particularly to assist and directly support Syrian refugees, including in the neighborhood countries, like in Jordan, like in Lebanon, like in Turkey. But on the second hand, we just agreed as well on a 1.8 billion euros trust fund to support African partners we work with, particularly the one affected, to tackle the root causes of this refugee and migration crisis.
It's a crisis which isn't easing up. Greece saw 48,000 new arrivals in the past week, according to the International Organization for Migration, the highest number in 2015 so far. The leaders from the countries on the Western Balkan migratory route, as well as Germany and Austria, will spend Sunday locked into discussions about how to tackle the huge flows of people heading into Europe that way.
If we don't take the right kind of action now, what will happen is we will find increasingly desperate, miserable and frustrated people who are kept in indefinite detention in some of these camps and reception centres, and will actually become less and less willing to tolerate this. More and more refugees, according to current projections, will arrive, and the situation will become quite unmanageable.
The European Union has seen Turkey reject certain measures in cooperation in the refugee crisis over the last week or so. The meetings with non-EU countries in the Balkans will seek to ease the burden on smaller nations who are struggling to deal with the thousands of people held up or travelling through their country every day. Parrock, CCTV, Brussels.